Taoiseach, when we were here this day last week, you commented that more than 5,000 people are reported to have been killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza. That figure now stands at well over 10,000. Cancorla, we should all stop and just think about those numbers for a moment. More people have been killed in Gaza in a single week than during the entire conflict in the north of Ireland. Substantially more, in fact, have been killed by Israel over 7 days than by all actors to the conflict in Ireland over 30 years. The scale is simply beyond comprehension. Of all those who have been killed by Israel, over 4,000 have been children, over 600 have been elderly, almost 3,000 have been adult women. And it continues, and the world is allowing it to continue. Best estimates suggest that there are 2,800 Palestinian civilians currently under rubble, including 1,300 children. And I say estimates because the precise numbers cannot be determined, because Israel continues to drop bombs and because of fuel shortages and communication difficulties resulting from their siege. Cancorla, virtually every statement from a Western leader on these issues begins with the words, "Israel has a right." We must make it absolutely clear. Israel does not have the right to engage in this ferocious, aggressive assault against the civilian population of Gaza. Israel does not have the right to forcibly displace over 1.5 million people. Israel, and I don't believe that this actually needs to be said, but Israel does not have the right to target and bomb hospitals, to bomb schools, to bomb mosques, and Israel does not have the right to destroy refugee camps, killing entire families, children, the elderly, people with disability. These are rights that no one has, not Hamas, not Russia, and not Israel. And neither do world leaders have the right to apply double standards. We were all outraged by the attacks on Israeli civilians last month by Hamas, and our calls for ceasefires includes them, and we repeat our demand that all hostages be immediately released. But if the outrage and condemnation at the killing of an innocent Israeli child is not matched by equal outrage and condemnation at the killing of an innocent Palestinian child, then the entire basis of international law is cut to shreds. If world leaders stand silent when 90 UNRWA staff are killed by Israel, when 192 healthcare personnel are killed by Israel, when 36 civil defence personnel are killed by Israel, when 47 journalists are killed by Israel, where lies any authority to ever again point the finger at any other hostile, aggressive action on the part of anyone else? Ireland has called for a ceasefire. This House is united in that demand, and rightfully so. And yes, we're in a minority of EU states in that regard. Shame on those who refuse to back that humanitarian call, I say. But we are also clearly in a majority of humanity. The UN General Assembly has overwhelmingly adopted a resolution calling for ceasefires, and Israel has ignored that call. If anything, Israel has intensified its indiscriminate and illegal actions. The ongoing assaults on the West Bank exposes as a lie any notion that this is a war against Hamas. It is an attempt to finally conquer and destroy the Palestinian people. Israeli forces have now entered Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister has indicated that Israel intends to occupy Gaza. So the natural question emerges: what are we going to do about it? Above all, and this is important and must be said again and again, our calls for full unconditional ceasefires, for the release of hostages, for the delivery of adequate humanitarian aid and for an end to the siege and invasion of Gaza must intensify. But if Israel continues to defy the will of the world, then there must be a price. The international community must now take action to enforce international law. And from an Irish perspective, all available diplomatic, legislative and political options must be deployed by the Irish government to force Israel to end the barbaric attacks. The Taoiseach's responses to these requests to date essentially are twofold: that other EU states won't support sanctions and that Israel would ignore them anyway. These are actually arguments, in my view, to take these actions. Because if others won't act, then we must. We simply cannot. We cannot stand by while a country that is engaged in the most prolonged and intensive disregard for international law continues to enjoy preferential trading, preferential economic and preferential diplomatic relationships that should only be confined to those states that actually operate to the highest standards of human rights. If we don't take action, then the inference is clear. It's that our outrage at the killing of an Israeli child is not matched by equal outrage at the killing of a Palestinian child. And if we allow that inference to continue, then Ireland, rather than being the champion for international law and the UN Charter that we all strive to be, instead becomes complicit in making those principles meaningless.